Police officer fired for referring to Black Lives Matter as terrorists.
Mr. Reagan.
Now, spring is here, and what do we do in spring? Spring cleaning. The mower needs to be sorted, the garden looks a little bit wrecked, and the barbecue needs some work. You might enjoy doing these jobs, but if you don't, or you can't, you're going to need to pay somebody else, and that takes a bit of money. And let's face it, putting money aside for comfortable retirement is the only way that you're going to get out of doing the lawn yourself, right? And if you got a little bit of money saved up in the bank, well, that way you can visit the kids, you can hike the trail, you can play golf, all the things that your friends are doing. And Noble Gold can help with this by investing in precious metals along with your other investments. A gold or silver IRA is a great way of doing this. And this month, Noble Gold is gifting a genuine rare Carson City minted Morgan silver dollar with every qualifying IRA or 401k that you invest with. And this thing is fantastic. I mean, even just the case, I love this thing. See, because I actually really love old coins and stuff like that. And it's absolutely beautiful. I looked it up, and these things are a nice little chunk of change, and it's genuinely old. I mean, apparently these things were distributed in the 70s. They were obviously minted in the 19th century. In 1964, after a century in obscurity in the vaults. So these were in like the vaults. And so in the 1960s, they were like, okay, let's go ahead and distribute these. And I think the initial offering was like $15, and all these collectors bought them up. But yeah, now that you can get one in this nifty case, I mean, this thing, it's beautiful. It really is sort of like an old-fashioned thing that you can have, and it reminds you of better days in America when everybody wasn't so woke and crazy. People say that, oh, if you're nostalgic for the old times, you're nostalgic for oppression. No. If you're nostalgic for the old times, you're nostalgic for a time in America where people respected things like morality and ethics and not like wokeness and horrible things like that. But when people they actually had a sense of integrity. And I think people long for those days. All right, so if you want one of these Carson City coins and you want to invest in an IRA or a 401k, get in touch with the experts at noblegoldinvestments.com or call 877-646-5347 and talk to the experts now. That's 877-646-5347, or you can go to the website noblegoldinvestments.com or click the link in the description below. Yes, so a police officer was fired just for referring to Black Lives Matter as terrorists. And here's why I find that annoying. They are terrorists. They're totally terrorists. Sorry. That's the wrong one. That's the right one. Okay. So, police officer fired after 20 years of service. She's been on the force for 20 years because she wrote on some social media site that Black Lives Matter are terrorists and she's afraid of these people. A beloved New Jersey police officer has been fired after 2 decades on the job for calling Black Lives Matter terrorists in a post on social media. Officer Sarah Irwin, a Hopewell Township police officer, was fired on Friday after an investigation by the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office and the police office. Oh, she called Black Lives Matter terrorists? We better open an investigation. How weak are cops now that they have to fire police officers for saying words they don't like? I mean, I could tell, like, it makes sense if she was like saying the N-word a bunch and saying like she hates black people and she wants to lynch them all or something like that. I can understand that because that indicates that you have a bias and you're not going to police in a just manner, and you could potentially put people in danger because of those biases. In the same way, I do think that police officers who talk about how much they hate white people, they should also be fired. Are those cases ever investigated? Does that ever happen? I'm sure it happens. Are they ever investigated? Oh, I highly doubt. I've never heard of that being investigated. But does it happen sometimes? I'm sure it happens. I'm sure some black police officers say how much they hate white people, and they're never investigated. But somebody says that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, which it is, and she gets fired. A second officer, Sergeant Mandy Gray, was also demoted and suspended for 6 months after replying to a comment on the Post, according to a report by NJ.com. She has also been with the force for more than 20 years. The Post reads as follows. Last night, as I left for work, I had my 2 kids crying for me not to go to work. I don't think I've ever felt the way I did last night. And then I watched people I know and others I care about going into harm's way. I love my police family like my own. So when you share posts and things on Facebook, I'd really appreciate it if you think before doing so. I've had so many Black Lives Matter hashtags in these posts. Just to let you know, they are terrorists. They hate me. They hate my uniform. They don't care if I die. I disagree with this woman. I think they do care if you die. I think they want you to die. I think it's worse than she's even saying. I think they want her to die because she's a police officer.
I had friends, family, tons of people reaching out, checking on me because they were seeing so many things in the news. I felt like it was easiest to put what I was feeling and get a message out there that I was home, I was safe, and it was an emotional time. It really was. My children were crying. They were in my heart, and I was worried about other officers that I know in other cities. An acquaintance in Washington, D.C. Like, I'm hearing things, I'm getting alerts on my phone from news sources, and it was just a really difficult couple days. I've never been in trouble in my entire career, pretty much a rule follower. I was devastated. I'm still devastated. This punishment for something that's a policy violation, it's just really, it's difficult. It's difficult for, my former coworkers. It's difficult for friends and family. It's difficult for the community. Once they found out, they hadn't known,
So yeah, I mean, I support these women. I would recommend they go to, what is it, North Dakota, South Dakota? Where's that woman? Where's Kristi Noem? Kristi, Noem? I don't know how to spell her name. Let's see here. She is the governor of South Dakota. I'm not from the Dakotas. I can't keep them straight. So I think Kristi Noem put out this remark the other day, expressed this idea. If you've been fired or you've been, you've had some kind of an issue in the police force, come to South Dakota. Maybe she was talking about these ladies. I don't know what I just vaguely heard it in passing. So
we are supporting our law enforcement officers. We're supporting the men on that mountain because of our history. We saw last year riots and protests in cities all across this country, still continuing today. The violence on our streets that is endangering so many people. We did a national campaign to law enforcement officers, asked them that if they wanted to live in a state where they were respected, to come to South Dakota.
The lawyer representing the two officers said that they are exemplary and decorated officers with absolutely no disciplinary history, and blasted their punishments as disgraceful and cowardice. I agree. Gray was the first female officer hired in Hopewell Township, and she was the first sergeant when promoted in 2019, a rank she will lose in the demotion. Crivelli said the discipline results, I guess Crivelli is the name of the lawyer, the result is dumbfounding, as neither officer has any prior internal affairs complaints. This is the first such investigation for either. Both women are appealing with the Superior Court. Don't appeal. Just leave. This article was written by Cassandra Fairbanks, who we all know and love from the Twitter. But anyway, yeah, so that's what's happening in our world, ladies and gentlemen. If you work for the police department, you're not allowed to say Black Lives Matter activists are terrorists, even though they are.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.